Welcome to Blessed Be the Breakdown, the podcast where I dive deep into The Handmaid's Tale, unpacking its themes, and most importantly, drawing connections to the real world. Although it's a work of fiction, the show is rooted in real historical and contemporary examples of oppression. From slavery to colonialism to the treatment of women today, the story doesn't feel too far removed from reality. I'm Jazz, and originally I planned to break down each episode individually, but with Season 6 coming in April, I'll be covering Seasons 1, 2, and 3 in one episode apiece, while Seasons 4 and 5 will each get 2 episodes. In these episodes, I'll summarize key events, analyze major themes, and explore just how terrifyingly close Gilead feels to our world today. If you haven't watched the show yet, I highly recommend doing so to fully understand what I'm discussing. So let's dive in. The Handmaid's Tale is set in the dystopian future of Gilead, a totalitarian society that has replaced the United States. Gilead is governed by a theocratic regime that strictly enforces biblical laws. The show explores the consequences of political, social, and gender oppression. In this society, fertility has sharply declined, and women are treated as property. The central characters are the handmaids, women forced into childbearing for the ruling elite. Season 1 starts with chaos. We open with June, Luke, and Hannah running for their lives. It's a scene of pure desperation. We see Hannah and June sprinting into the woods, Luke staying behind as gunshots ring out. There's no music, just the pounding of their feet, labored breath, and the terror in their eyes. The handheld camera work makes it feel almost documentary-like, very raw and unfiltered. June clutches Hannah, shielding her as they try to outrun an enemy we barely see, but then it happens. They're caught. A soldier tears Hannah from June's arms, and the camera lingers on her tiny outstretched hand, her cries for her mother, and then June's scream. It's guttural, instinctual, the sound of a mother losing her child with no power to stop it. This isn't just fear, it's powerlessness, a feeling she and all handmaids will be forced to endure over and over again. This opening scene sets the tone for everything that follows. Gilead isn't just an oppressive regime, it's a machine built to break people, and it starts by taking away what they love the most. We are thrown into June's new life as Offred, a handmaid in Commander Waterford's home. We meet Fred Waterford. As one of the architects of Gilead, he is key in ensuring the system thrives. Fred enjoys his dominance fully. His interactions with June shift between condescending kindness and outright cruelty throughout the show. He claims to uphold morality while exploiting women behind closed doors. Serena Joy, Fred's wife, who, despite her role in creating Gilead's oppressive system, finds herself struggling with the lack of power she now has. Right off the bat, she wastes no time in showing us how she feels about the handmaids, as she compares training handmaids to training dogs. I do want to really spend some time discussing the complex relationship between Offred and Serena. It is one of the emotional and core conflicts in Season 1 and throughout all of the seasons. At the start, Serena seems like one of the bad guys. She helped create the system that oppresses women in Gilead, and she's in charge of how Offred is treated, including overseeing the ceremony. She enforces these strict rules that control the handmaids. But as the season goes on, we learn that Serena is actually a very conflicted character. Even though she helped set up Gilead, she's also trapped by it. She can't have children, and that makes her feel powerless, even though she's part of the ruling class. In a way, she's just as oppressed as the handmaids, even if it looks different. And this is what they want us to feel. Her jealousy and frustration toward Offred come from her own emotional pain and the fact that she can't have the role that society says she should have. Offred sees Serena as both an enemy and someone who is also stuck in the same oppressive system. Even though Offred doesn't like being a handmaid, she can understand that Serena is isolated and miserable too. Even though Serena holds some power over her, this shows one of the main themes of the show, that women in Gilead are all in different ways victims of the system they live under, even if they're also a part of or helped create the problem. The relationship between Offred and Serena is complicated. They have moments where they seem to hate each other, but also moments where they show surprising understanding. In the end, Serena does something to help Offred, even though it's risky for her. This shows that Serena is pushing back against the rules of Gilead, but it also shows how the system makes it hard for women to break free, even if they want to. Their relationship is messy, and it shows how power works in an unfair society. In this season, we are also introduced to the ceremony. The ceremony is a ritualistic act where the commander attempts to impregnate the handmaid by sexually assaulting her in front of his wife, as a part of Gilead's rules for reproduction. This ceremony isn't just a physical act, but a symbol of how women are reduced to mere vessels for childbirth in this society. In the ceremony, women have no agency. Offred and the other handmaids are stripped of their dignity, subjected to a highly formalized, uncomfortable ritual that makes the act of sex both a political and a religious duty. And it's not even sex, they are literally being raped. It's designed to ensure that the handmaid's purpose remains clear. She exists solely to bear children for the ruling class. The ceremony reinforces the deep societal control of Gilead, turning reproduction into a detached, impersonal act. This ritual highlights the dehumanizing nature of Gilead's system, where women are defined by their reproductive capacity. It's also a key moment of powerlessness for Offred, whose autonomy is entirely erased, demonstrating just how entrenched gender inequality and authoritarian control are in this world. The ceremony becomes a powerful symbol of how Gilead manipulates religion, tradition, and law to subjugate women. As if just having to perform this ceremony wasn't dehumanizing enough, they all gather in what seems to be a living area before the ceremony, and they read a verse from the Bible, specifically Genesis 30, which describes the story of Rachel and her maidservant. Now when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said to Jacob, "Give me children, or else I die." And Jacob's anger was aroused against Rachel, and he said, "Am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb?" So she said, "Here is my maid, Bilhah. Go into her, and she will bear a child on my knees, that I also may have children by her." And this passage is used to justify the practice in Gilead, where the wife of the commander offers her handmaid to the commander in hopes that she will conceive and bear a child for the family. The Bible verse, taken out of context, is used by the regime to legitimize the system of forced reproduction and the power dynamics between men and women in Gilead. In this season, we are also introduced to Ovglin, June's shopping partner, who at first seems like a true believer, but later we learn she is a part of the rebellion. There are some key things with Ovglin that I will go into later. We also have Nick. June and Nick's relationship starts off with mutual mistrust. Nick is the commander's driver, and June, of course the handmaid, have limited interaction at first, with June wary of trusting anyone in Gilead. However, as the season progresses, Nick's small acts of kindness, like offering June a cigarette, reveal his possible discontent with Gilead's oppressive rules. Their relationship really begins to shift more from mere acquaintances to having a shared understanding of everything going on in Gilead. And they develop a strong bond, really strong bond. Their connection deepens when they have sex. But prior to them mutually deciding to have sex, Serena goes to Nick and basically asks him to impregnate Offred because she knows that Fred is most likely infertile, especially because they've been having multiple ceremonies and they were trying before, and he is seeming like the likely culprit for no children. Offred later uses this sex as an act of rebellion against Gilead's rules, and that complicates their feelings for each other. Though initially conflicted, June feels both guilty and empowered by the intimacy, while Nick is still emotionally guarded, shows signs of caring for her, but still seems to kind of try to keep his distance. However, by the end of season 1, their relationship really becomes more intense and dangerous. And then, of course, we do have Rita, a Martha in the Waterford household. Rita operates in a space between survival and quiet resistance. She initially seems harsh towards June, but as we see later, her loyalty isn't necessarily to Gilead, but to those who suffer under it. And then we have Moira, Offred's best friend before Gilead, and throughout season 1, We see June and Moira share a really close friendship that serves as a reminder of their lives before Gilead. They were once free women, and their bond is rooted in their shared past, as well as their mutual experiences of defiance. In flashbacks, we see them both at the Red Center together, which I will get into the Red Center here in a second. And then we also see flashbacks of them before Gilead, where June is, telling Moira she's pregnant, and you just really see how close they were before. And June holds on to the memory of their friendship as a source of strength and resistance. June's memories from before of both Hannah and Luke play a crucial role in June's wanting to escape and having a reason to try and stay strong. Hannah's June's younger daughter, or only daughter at this point, and her separation from June serves as one of the driving forces behind June's actions and thoughts. Also, the fact that she does not want Hannah to grow up in Gilead. She's seeing everything firsthand that's going on, and that is not the life she wants for her daughter. So one of her main driving goals is for her and Hannah to escape. Another element that really cements Gilead's horror is the Red Center, aka the Rachel and Leah Center, where handmaids are indoctrinated under Aunt Lydia's watch. And let's talk about that for a second. Aunt Lydia doesn't just enforce rules. She rewires these women's minds, using fear, religion, and punishment to force obedience. The scene where Janine has her eye taken out for speaking up, that's not just punishment, it's psychological warfare. And the worst part, when they force the handmaids to shame other handmaids for being raped, or generally just something that's not their fault. They have them sit in a circle and chant, "Her fault, her fault." It's about making these women turn on each other, severing their ability to form bonds or a resistance. And that's something we've seen in real life. Oppressors don't just use violence, they use division. In the real world, women are constantly pitted against each other, whether it's over purity, motherhood, or even feminism itself. Divide and conquer. Gilead understands that all too well. There are a few other key aspects that come to light in season 1. One being the public executions at the salvagings, and also the hangings. Gilead's concept of punishment is brutal, as seen in public executions of a guardian who was convicted of raping a pregnant handmaid, which is very double standard. We do see that double standards are a very common occurrence in Gilead, though. Another thing we see in season 1 are the Eyes, who are essentially the spies for Gilead. Gilead is riddled with these spies called the Eyes, and these individuals are planted in households and are tasked with monitoring and reporting on any suspicious activity. Offred, in the beginning of the season, realizes that there is an Eye living in her house. We later find out that Eye is actually Nick. Let's get into some real world parallels. The Red Center isn't just a place where handmaids are trained, it's a psychological warfare center, designed to erase independent thought and instill absolute obedience. Aunt Lydia doesn't just enforce rules, she makes the handmaids believe they deserve their suffering. They are told that their past lives were sinful, that they are being redeemed through servitude, and that questioning authority is dangerous. This is how totalitarian systems thrive, by controlling knowledge and rewriting history. Now let's look at what's happening today in the US. Book bans are skyrocketing, especially books about race, gender, and LGBTQ+ identities. Conservative-led school boards across the country have removed books like The Handmaid's Tale, Genderqueer, and The Bluest Eye from libraries, arguing that they are inappropriate or dangerous. But this isn't about protecting children, it's about controlling what people can learn. Florida's Don't Say Gay bill and other anti-LGBTQ+ education laws forbid teachers from discussing sexual orientation or gender identity. This echoes how Gilead silences anything that doesn't fit its rigid ideology. The goal? To erase certain identities and control future generations' beliefs. Censorship is expanding into the digital spaces. States like Texas and Florida have attempted to restrict online discussions about reproductive rights, LGBTQ+ identities, and racial history, echoing the way Gilead suppresses knowledge. When the state controls what you can read, learn, or discuss, you're already on the path to Gilead. Now that we understand how Gilead is set up, it's important to see how different women in this world react or struggle to react to the harsh system around them. Each woman's journey shows a different way of surviving, adapting, and in some cases fighting back. Ovglen's character gives us an early look into the tension between loyalty and resistance in Gilead. Though she appears to follow the rules, Ovglen reveals that she isn't actually loyal to Gilead, and hints at a hidden resistance. This small act of defiance points to the larger underground movement, showing that even in such a tightly controlled society, there are those who fight back. Ovglen's quiet rebellion is in sharp contrast to Moira's more obvious attempt to escape. Moira's journey from trying to break free to ending up at Jezebel's, a place where powerful men break the very rules they set, shows how even the most rebellious people often face the harsh reality that Gilead controls everything. It's a world that punishes women for the same things it allows men to do. As for Offred, she begins to resist in her own way. Her acts of defiance may be small, quiet moments with others, secret looks, or private thoughts, but these little acts are crucial to keep her sense of who she is alive. Her growing relationship with Nick becomes an important form of resistance. It's a small rebellion against Gilead's control over women's bodies and relationships. Through Nick, June reminds herself that she is still a person who can feel love, desire, and perhaps even hope. These small acts of rebellion help her hold on to the belief that she's still June, despite everything Gilead has tried to take from her. Now let's talk about Serena Joy. If anyone in The Handmaid's Tale shows that you get what you deserve, it's her. Serena played a huge role in creating Gilead, thinking that she would have power and respect in this new world, but what does she have now? A husband who barely notices her, and who even turns to June in ways that Serena can't control. Serena's life, which she thought would give her control and respect, now only leaves her feeling empty. Her home might look like it's hers to rule, but she's really a second-class citizen, just like every other woman in Gilead. She helped build this world, but now it has taken everything from her. The power she thought she'd have has been stripped away, and she's left with nothing but a painful reminder of how wrong she was. This is something we see all the time with women who align themselves with oppressive systems. Whether it's politicians pushing anti-women laws or public figures enforcing purity culture, they believe these rules won't apply to them until they do. Serena helps create Gilead, believing she will hold power only to become trapped in the same oppression she enabled. Once in place, Gilead discarded her, showing that oppressive systems don't reward their female architects, they erase them. This mirrors a real-world pattern, where women in power push for policies that limit their own rights, believing they'll be spared. Conservative figures like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Moms for Liberty advocate for restrictions on women's autonomy, failing to realize these laws apply to everyone, including them. Serena Joy believed she'd be an exception, and she was wrong. Supporting oppression won't protect you. Serena Joy's story is a warning. You can support the system, but it'll eventually turn on you. By the time we reach the final episodes of Season 1, the cracks in Gilead's foundation really start to show, but so does its cruelty. Commander Putnam is a perfect example of the hypocrisy that fuels Gilead. While he enforces these strict rules, he himself violated them while having an affair of sorts with Janine, promising her love and protection while using her solely for his own gain. This reveals the twisted gender dynamics at play. He represents the many men in power who see women as disposable, valued only as long as they serve their purpose. From the start, she was one of the only handmaids who allows herself to dream of love, of freedom, of something beyond the rigid servitude forced upon her. She clings to the idea that her commander truly cares for her, that she's different. But in Gilead, love isn't real, only power is. And that's all they want. So when Janine becomes an inconvenience, she's discarded. She's forced to give up her baby and is sentenced to execution. In Gilead, women are only valuable as long as they serve a purpose. The moment they step out of line, they become disposable. Then there's Ovglen. We've seen her transform so much throughout this season, starting as the quiet, who we thought pious observer, then revealing her ties to the resistance, and finally making a bold, desperate move by stealing a car and running down a guardian. It's one of the most defiant acts of the season. And how does Gilead respond? By mutilating her, taking her ability to feel pleasure, to have autonomy over her own body. It's not just about punishment with Gilead, it's about breaking her will. Uvglin is one of the first characters we see suffer extreme punishment for being a gender traitor. In Gilead, being queer isn't just frowned upon, it's a crime punishable by mutilation or death. Now, looking at what's happening around the world today, Uganda recently passed one of the most extreme anti-LGBTQ+ laws in the world, making same-sex relationships punishable by death. This is Gilead-level cruelty happening in real life. In the US, over 500 anti-LGBTQ+ bills were introduced in 2023 alone. Many of these laws target transgender people, banning gender-affirming care, restricting pronoun use, and even criminalizing drag performances. Gilead forces people into strict gender roles, and these laws are doing the same thing. When a government starts criminalizing people for simply existing, we are on the road to Gilead. Because in Gilead, your body isn't your own. They can take anything from you, your freedom, your voice, your sense of self. And if you resist, they'll make you regret it. And then there's June. Towards the end of the season, we find out June is pregnant, after Serena forces her to take a pregnancy test. This revelation carries immense weight, not just because it means June will be even more tightly controlled, but because the father isn't Fred, it's Nick. This complicates everything. Their relationship, which has been a form of quiet rebellion, now has very real consequences. Nick, who has often seemed caught between duty and love, is suddenly in a far more precarious position. His loyalty to June is now tied to something tangible, their baby. But in Gilead, love and family mean nothing compared to power and control. This pregnancy isn't just about bringing new life into the world. It's about Gilead owning yet another piece of June, using her body and her baby as a tool for their regime. Throughout the season, June's been carefully navigating this world, pushing boundaries in small ways, but in these final episodes, she takes her biggest stand yet. And it comes when she refuses to stone Janine. It's more than just an act of mercy. It's a direct rejection of Gilead's control. The handmaids, one by one, follow her lead, refusing to kill their own. This is a big turning point. It's the first time we see the handmaids act as a collective, the first time they push back against the system together. And it proves something powerful. Gilead can control their bodies, but it can't fully control their mind. And then we arrive at the haunting final scene of season 1. June is taken away by the eyes. The doors of the black van close behind her, sealing her fate, and we are left to wonder what is going to become of June in season 2. Overall, in season 1, we see quite a few themes: oppression and control, resistance and rebellion, gender and power, fertility and motherhood, surveillance and fear. But one theme that I did want to touch on a little more in depth is the theme of religious extremism and hypocrisy, and the parallels in today's world. Because honestly, after watching The Handmaid's Tale, you know how terrifying it is when people twist religion for power. Especially when it comes to the current political climate in America. Because honestly, the double standards are crazy. At his inaugural address, Trump said, "I was saved by God to make America great again," seemingly referencing the assassination attempt this last summer, where he was grazed by a bullet. This isn't new. For years, evangelical leaders have painted Trump as chosen by God, even though, let's be real, his personal life is the exact opposite of what they preach. Gilead's leaders claim they're doing God's work, but they're really just using religion to justify control. Evangelical leaders preach morality, but they overlook Trump's affairs, lies, and corruption because he gives them so much power. The same way commanders in Gilead pretend to be righteous while breaking all the rules behind closed doors. And when it comes to abortions and women's rights, Trump appointed the justices who overturned Roe v. Wade, and religious conservatives celebrated it like it was the second coming. But here's the kicker. Trump himself has been accused of paying for abortions. So which is it? Do they actually care about protecting life or just controlling women? In The Handmaid's Tale, fertility is treated as a weapon of oppression, just like we're seeing today with extreme abortion bans. And speaking of selective outrage, these same Christian conservatives love to go after the LGBTQ plus rights, books, and anything woke, claiming it's a moral threat. But when Trump openly lies, mocks people, and encourages hate, nothing but dead silence. Where's that same energy of Christian values when it comes to truth and compassion? El Salvador has a total abortion ban. In some cases, even women who miscarry are charged with homicide, mirroring how handmaids are blamed for pregnancy losses. In Afghanistan, the Taliban have banned girls from secondary education, much like how Gilead strips women of literacy and academic freedom. Recently, we have seen reports of women being trafficked and exploited in the country of Georgia for human egg harvesting. A Thai woman responded to a social media ad offering payment for surrogacy. When she arrived, she found 60 to 70 other Thai women held in a house by Chinese nationals. There were no surrogacy contracts. Women were forcibly given injections and had their eggs extracted. These are just some of the things going on in the world that have some parallels to The Handmaid's Tale. Now, I'm not trying to compare these things to fearmonger at all. I'm just trying to show that things like this are already happening in the world. And if we don't pay attention to these things, they can spiral. At the end of the day, The Handmaid's Tale is fiction. But this show serves as a cautionary tale. It's a reminder of what can happen when power is concentrated in the wrong hands, and when the basic rights of individuals, especially women, are stripped away. Gilead is a warning, and in today's world, it's easy to see how these kinds of abuses of power could take root. Let me know what you think. This is my first time doing a podcast like this by myself, so share your thoughts with me. What parallels are you seeing? Anything you want me to specifically cover, just let me know. Let's continue this conversation. Join me on social media and share your thoughts. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music. I have all of those. And remember, oppression thrives when people stay silent. That's it for this week's episode of Blessed Be the Breakdown. New episodes drop every Thursday. Next week, we're diving into season 2. You don't want to miss it. Until then, under his eye.